On your remixes, is it easy to tell it's your work, or do you try to keep people guessing?
Most people know, like especially people that have heard many of my remixes and know what's going on. Everybody has unique sound to whatever they do with the music, and that's also your forte, to become someone in this industry. If you're able to do a lot of different things and they all sound okay, but none of them really jumps out, then it's really hard to survive. But putting your identity on it, putting your stamp on it, like your sound, that's very important.
You teach.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I was asked roughly 4 years ago by a big university in Holland that got just merged with 2 other ones. It goes from film scoring to video game scoring to music for commercials, to make electronic compositions as an art form, remixing dance music, producing bands, songwriting with well-known artists or with any artist, recording techniques, mixing techniques, engineering, mastering, sound design. It's really broad. Wow. And basically I help them set up to get the right literature, to get the right software, to get the right plugins, how to divide the blocks over 4 years and stuff like that. Basically, if somebody's done after 4 years, he would be my ideal assistant. That was the goal. So that's what we're doing, and I'm there a couple of times a year. I also do video conferencing with the students. So we just do it from the studio. They're there at school, and we just use Instant Messenger or AM or Skype or whatever is working better at that specific time of the day. And we just go back and forth. I listen to stuff, I give them comments, a lot of motivation talks. I think that's the most important thing.
Do you think you could have done what you're doing there and it would have been just as successful?
Once it becomes apparent that your music will, attract different people, then it would be stupid not to go out, because then you would shoot yourself in the foot. But I mean, there are even people out there that do that. They're like, no, I just make my music. I won't go on tour. I won't travel. I won't do. That's fine. But that's the point where you can decide. And that was exactly what was going on for me. I had already a lot of work in this town. It was my focus for the next 20 years, so it would be stupid not to move to to Los Angeles.
What's the normal process? Do you hear a song you can work your magic on, or do artists seek you out to do that?
When we talk about remixes, usually like 90% of the time it's the artist that approaches you and says, I want you to do a remix of this song.
What level of artistic freedom do you have?
I've been really lucky that most of the remixes that I do, I take usually a very different approach from the original song and do something completely different with it, or enhance the song and add more stuff to it. And artists usually are really happy with the end result, so I rarely have to go back and forth with the record company or artist to work on feedback that they might have on whatever I've sent them, or any creative direction. So I would say in my case, my artistic freedom is almost maximum when it comes to remixes. I can just do whatever I want.
Wow.
And a lot of the times they say, Tom, just do what you do best. It's good.
Play with it.
Yeah.
You have a big role in music for video games. How was that? What was that like, getting into that?
The music for video games, I think it's interesting to know a little bit about that history. Is that in the beginning when video games started, and I was pretty much there when it started, which was with the release of Pong. There were more experimental versions of games before that, but Pong was the kind of like the first commercial release. And I remember I was 6 years old and my neighbors got it, and so we were there, just like doo, doo, doo. No music. And then arcade versions came out later, and then it went pretty rapidly, with Pac-Man and Stars Invaders, and there were always like these monophonic, for these little things playing in the background, and usually it was just a guy at the office where that thing was being programmed. It's like, hey, but doesn't play John like guitar or something? Well, he can do the music. That's how it all started. And that continued for a long time. And then early 90s, 92, 93, for the first time, they were like, well, yeah, John plays guitar, but why don't we get a track of this guy because he's a pro, you know? And that's the first time when music got licensed in from existing CDs and were put into the video game. So that's one way to get music in video games. It still works like that. So existing music material, you've already released an artist album, and the music supervisor of that video game picks a song of your album and wants to use that in the video game. So that's one way to get music in a video game. The second one is remixing a song to make it work for the video game, which is that I've done that as well, where they would take a song from a certain artist, for instance Tom Jones, and they want to use it in a video game that's very high octane and very energetic, but the original doesn't work, but his lyrics and his voice does really work with the game. So then they approach me and they say, Tom, can you take that song and make it work for this game? Whatever you have to do to it. Another good example is my Elvis remix that was #1 all over the world. The original song didn't work for the Nike commercial, but my remix did. So that's why they gave me the original song. Tom, make it work for the commercial, and then so that's another way. The third, and that's the most interesting one, is when, same as with movies, you do the original score for the video game. Basically, you get the game, you play with it, you sit with it for months on end, you talk with all the creative people involved with that video game, and you come up with an hour and a half to 2.5 hours of original music that has one single purpose, and that is in the game when you're actually playing the game. So it's not music that is out there that you can buy on CDs, it's not music that's perfect for clubs, it's not radio friendly, it's there only for the video game, for that moment when you're playing the game. So that's the most interesting part, because then you're really involved in all the aspects of the video game, and it's a lot of teamwork. And so it's actually being completely different than an artist, because an artist, supposedly, you gotta have like a big ego, you gotta have you know, artistic freedom, all that stuff. But as soon as you start working in the film and video game world, you have to be a team player. Because if you don't leave your ego at the door when you go in for a meeting, I mean, there's no room for you there, because you will get shit on so many times, you know, by creatives and other people that have something to say all the time about your music. So, and with film, it's a little more complicated than with video games. But yeah, you got to be a team player and a good listener, and be able to, you know, work hard and change things over and over and over again, and at the same time maintain your identity as a musician. That's the big trick.
Where do you see yourself in the future?
I hope, you know, I'll stay healthy enough, you know, for another 30 years or 40 years, you know, to maintain doing what I'm doing. And I love my work so much, and it's just constantly being on the lookout for new things, trying to reinvent yourself, try to, you know, work on on stuff that you really like working on. Music always will be an important part of my life, I'm sure. But I think it's very important that it's kind of like a paradox, but as an artist you need to have a certain form of arrogance to feel honestly that whatever you're contributing to the world with your music has some meaning to it. If you're just making music just for the money or just for the sake of it, you might want to consider to do something else, you know, collecting stamps or
whatever. Well, thank you so much for your time, and it was a pleasure meeting you. And,
cool.
Good luck to you.
Thanks. Nice meeting you too.
You too. Okay. Done.